Come along with me this week as I tackle this rather rough, beat up vintage dresser. It has a lot of loose trim, a lot of failing veneer. The paint, as you can see, is really, really chippy. It has multiple layers. It's pretty sloppily put on, not to mention it's also really dirty. You can see right here, this is an area that somebody tried to patch where the veneer was failing. And these drawers don't slide very well. A lot of them are coming apart. There are some notable issues that I will have to address. But a piece like this, in my opinion, is definitely worth saving. It has a lot of history, a lot of solid wood, and I think that it can be turned around into something really beautiful. Will it ever be completely perfect? No, but I think that that adds a lot of character to it. Follow along and let's see what we can do. Because I know this piece is pretty old and it has been painted and the paint is a little chippy and there's some kind of like it's separating and flaking, I am, just as a caution, going to do a lead test. These are pretty easy to pick up. It's a swab. You dip it in vinegar and then you rub it on the painted surface, and it has a tester strip, and if it turns more red or this like purpley maroon color, that means it has lead. But you can see this one's pretty clearly in the yellow orange section, so it's not lead-based paint, but it's always good to check so that you know what you're dealing with ahead of time. My plan for this piece is to actually remove 90% of the veneer. You can see, especially in this area, it has just completely come loose. There was probably some moisture damage at some point, but underneath this veneer is a lot of solid wood. And so by removing this, I still have a solid surface to either apply a stain, a paint wash, or even paint. I will be removing the couple layers of veneer on the top of the dresser as well. Again, it's failing pretty badly. It's hard to tell underneath all that paint, but it was very, very loose. It should not be coming up this easy. And yes, I could have tried to reattach it, glue it back down, but with this amount that is loose, it's hard to get glue all the way into the center of the top. I actually really do like these handles. I have no idea if they're original, but I will put them to the side. They are brass, they're just pretty tarnished, and I'll use them again. You can see, again, the veneer is coming up pretty easily on this drawer. There are some areas that somebody had patched before. I just take a really sharp putty knife in various different sizes, and I really slowly chip away at the loose areas of veneer. It's almost always loosest around the edges, around the corners, the areas that see the most wear and tear, and that's a good spot to start to peel up some of the veneer. For those more stubborn areas, a really good technique is to get a very, very, very wet towel, lay it on the surface, and put a hot iron on top. Just make sure not to burn your towel or leave it on too long, but it helps to loosen up that glue. Now, I probably would have had a little bit of an easier time with the iron method if I had stripped the paint off first. Because this was a semi-gloss paint, it was repelling some of that moisture pretty well, which it's its job. It's one of the purposes for using a glossier type of paint. I know that it's hard to tell on video, but all of this painted surface on the bottom here is where the veneer had chipped off before, and somebody did a patch job and just painted over it. So this is one of the reasons why I chose to remove the rest of the veneer. With this much veneer missing already, I mean, there's no way that I can fill it in color match. By removing this veneer, number one, I'm taking off something that's failing. So even if I were to paint it again, it wouldn't look like this with this patchy job. And I would be less likely to run into the problem of the veneer wanting to come loose or give way under the paint. If it's already failing, if you put a new surface on top, you're still going to run into issues down the road. I've done all the veneer removal that I plan on doing at this point. You can see on that top drawer I did end up removing the square details on the center of that drawer. I liked them, but they kept breaking while I was trying to remove the veneer. So I just decided to get rid of them altogether. I'm going to sand that drawer smooth, and then I will use a surface filler to fill that entire drawer front just to keep it nice and smooth. It's not going to be perfect. I am going with a more rustic look with this piece, and so I'm just looking to fill some of those larger areas. Now I need to address one of the major problems on one of these drawers. You can see over time this wood has worn away quite a bit. It's very, very warped. So how I'm going to fix this is I will take the drawer box apart and I will run the uneven edge through my table saw, get it nice and straight, nice and level on both sides. And this particular drawer box is made with oak, which is a nice hardwood. I have some oak scraps, so I will, again, use my table saw, rip a piece down, and I will go ahead and glue that to the bottom of that drawer box so that it has a new surface for that drawer box to glide inside of the track of the cabinet. It's always important to use plenty of wood glue when doing something like this. I'm not going to use any nails or anything like that to hold these boards together. Instead, I'm going to use a liberal amount of wood glue, clamp it very, very tightly, and allow it plenty of time to fully cure so that it has a nice tight bond before I put that drawer box back together. While I'm waiting for that glue to cure, I'm going to address the really deep gouges inside the dresser cavity. It's not going to be the most beautiful thing in the world, but I am going to take a very, very, very durable filler. This is a Bondo style filler. It's a two-part system, and I will mix those two together, and I will actually fill in the gouges on the inside of that dresser cavity so that that drawer has something smooth to run across. This was the easiest solution that I could think of to really smooth it out and provide a good stable surface for that drawer box to run across. These drawers are pretty large, and that's probably one of the reasons why this happened over the decades and decades of use that this piece had. And this filler cures very, very hard, so it won't be an issue with the weight of the drawer going over it over time. After I apply this filler on both sides, I will sand it completely smooth and do a second coat if needed. It's the next day, and these drawer components have fully cured, and now I can take them apart. I did leave quite a bit of excess on that new board that I attached to the drawer side, so I will measure out how much I need, and I will cut off that excess again with my table saw. I just did a dry fit to make sure I had cut enough material off. And after that fit in nicely, I'm going to take some wood glue and I'm going to start putting this drawer box back together. Because it was constructed with dovetails, it was pretty easy to take apart and also pretty easy to put back together. I'm going to clamp everything up and allow that wood glue to cure fully so that my drawer box is nice and sturdy. The paint job that the previous owners did got absolutely everywhere. It was on the back of the drawer boxes, inside, all over the place. So I'm going to take my orbital sander and I'm going to start cleaning up the paint. I will also smooth sand the drawer fronts from where I stripped off that veneer. It's pretty common that that wood underneath would be pretty rough, but with a quick smooth sand, it takes care of any of that unevenness. To sand that raised trim on the center of the drawers, I will use a foam pad in between my sander and my sandpaper, and I will go very, very gently. I'm just trying to remove that flaky paint because I do plan on painting these drawer fronts, so I just want to get rid of anything that's chippy or going to come up. For the rest of the dresser, it is solid wood. The legs are solid wood, the trim pieces, so I am going to actually strip it. There's a lot of detail you can see in those grooves on the side of the dresser, as well as those detailed legs. Both of those are going to be much easier to get the paint off with a chemical stripper rather than trying to sand the entire thing by hand. After applying a liberal coat of that stripper, I will give it about 10-15 minutes to work, and then I can begin scraping it off with a metal scraper. This metal scraper works really well on the flat surfaces. Next, I will get out some afterwash. This really just helps to remove any leftover stubborn paint or stain, as well as to neutralize the stripper itself. I use a fine grit steel wool to really work this afterwash into the piece and scrub off the rest of the paint. This steel wool allows me to contour in those grooves, and I will also use a wire bristled brush to get in some of those smaller grooves. It really does help to loosen up in some of those stubborn areas. After stripping all that paint off, I still have quite a bit left in some of those smaller grooved areas of the piece. I find it pretty useful to take a really fine tip pick and go through all these grooves. Something that's nice and sharp and has a fine point really does help to loosen up any stubborn paint. After that, I will do a lot of hand sanding. There's a lot of areas that paint really clung into, and really the only way to remove it is by sanding by hand. After all that veneer removal, stripping, sanding, everything's pretty dusty and dirty, so I'm going to give it a really thorough cleaning inside and out. This process is made a lot easier because that initial backer board that it came with, it fell apart when I was picking up the piece, so I have pretty good access from both the front and the back to make sure everything is very clean. My plan for this piece is to do a paint wash on the top, the legs, and the solid wood side trim pieces. To do this paint wash, I'm just going to take a tan colored paint add quite a bit of water, stir it around really, really well. Whenever I'm applying a paint wash, I like to mist a layer of water on my surface first. This does help to extend the working time, but you can see it's so hot in my shop right now. That water is already starting to evaporate and dry out. I will work as quickly as I can and brush this paint wash on the entire top surface and wipe it back as quickly as possible and as thoroughly as possible. Everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to go in the same direction as the wood grain. This just really helps to minimize any streakiness and keep everything flowing in the same direction. So it is extremely hot where I live and where I work, and using a water-based paint wash, this is one of the issues that is very, very common to run into. You can see it's a little splotchy in some areas. It just dried way too quickly for me. So what I'm gonna have to do now is sand this top back and reapply the paint wash. It should sand back pretty easily. I am going to use a 120 grit sandpaper and then finish with a 220 grit. Since this is a completely solid wood top, I don't have to worry about the material, the thickness that I'm sanding through, so that should be just fine. And the solution that I will do to try to avoid this issue is I will just take it in sections, which is pretty easy with this top because it does have such stark variation between the different planks of wood that got joined together. It won't be so much of an issue when I have to paint wash in certain sections rather than trying to paint wash the entire surface at once. After I redid that paint wash on the top, I was pretty happy with how it came out. I am going to seal all of the paint washed areas with this satin polyurethane. I will spray it through my sprayer. This just gives a really, really nice result. Very smooth to the touch, not to mention it's much faster than brushing things by hand. I will spray a couple coats, sanding very lightly in between each coat. For the areas that I do plan on painting, I have two melange paint colors left over that I really want to use up One is willow green and one is solstice. And I think it's going to be a really, really pretty light green color when they're mixed together. I really wanted to use these out because, as you can see, it's getting pretty chunky just from using it multiple times. Because I am going with more rustic look on this piece, I'm gonna opt to brush this paint on. This particular paint is their one line. It has a built-in primer and a built-in top coat included. So on a piece like this where I'm not expecting a lot of bleed through, it will be a really good option. I will brush a couple light coats on, going in one direction using a smooth, light hand and sanding in between each coat. I decided to go with a green color because I think this color is gonna really play very well with the different green hues in the top of this dresser. The solid wood top does have a lot of variation in color, and instead of trying to hide that, I want to embrace it and kind of make it one of its show features. And I think picking this color is really going to help to embrace those different hues in the top. I really like that style. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I tend to like wood that has a little bit of interest, a little bit of story, something that doesn't look like every other piece out there. One of the last things I need to do before I start to pull this piece together is to create a backsplash on the back of this piece. Uh, that's what these holes are from. It was pretty typical in pieces about this age for it to actually have a vertical board that stuck up, and this is where the dowels were to affix that backsplash on the top of the piece. So I did pick up a couple pieces of poplar. I needed a piece that was at least 1.5 inches thick, and they did not have any at the store that I was going to at the moment. So I did pick up 2 different boards, and I will glue them together, clamp them, put some pin nails through the back, and that's what I will use to build up that thickness that I need for that backsplash. The finish line is in sight. This piece took me a little bit longer than I was planning. It seems to always be the case. I always think that I can accomplish something faster than it really takes. Now I'm going to clean these drawer boxes very, very thoroughly. I have some of this leftover wallpaper that I'm going to use as a liner. I think it's going to really complement that light green color as well as those vintage brass pulls that it had when it came in. I will cut this paper around that divider in the center of the drawer. I think it's really going to kind of highlight that wooden trim piece in the middle, and I really like how it looks very finished in the end. The original vintage brass poles had a lot of tarnish on them, and I actually liked some of the dimension that tarnishing gave it. I'm just going to take a really fine steel wool and I'm going to buff them on the high points so that those high points really shine and that brass comes through. I'm also going to use some Howard's Feed and Wax, and I'm going to wax all of the drawer slide components as well as those tracks on the side before I go ahead and install the drawers back in. And finally, it's time. But before we take a look at the finished product, let's take a look back and remember how it all started. This piece was very rickety, very rough. The paint was chipping everywhere. The veneer was in awful shape. But this gem was really, really special. It had a lot of solid wood components. It had a lot of age to it. I don't know the exact age, but it was definitely older. And now look at it now. The light wood tones, that raw look, really complements that light green color. The brass poles pop off of that painted drawer front. The top with all of its dimension, all of its different colors, really gives your eye something to look at. I think this piece had a lot of history, obviously, and I hope that it gets to continue to live on and continue to have a lot more history in front of it. Let me know what you think. Did you like how this one came together? Do you think that this one was just better off left in the trash, or could you see the potential right from the beginning? Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe.